Hello, I'm Billy Screws, and welcome to another edition of Communities on Point. I have a very special guest today here in the Hartford Public Access Television studios. I have Congressman John Larson, who represents our 1st District here in Connecticut, and I'd like to welcome you today to our show.
Billy, always great to be with you.
Wonderful. It's been a busy time in Congress, and I would just like to say first, I had an opportunity prior to the re-election, if you will, of President Barack Obama. I recall meeting you at a local Starbucks, and you were out there campaigning.
In Bloomfield.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And we had a little discussion, and I had invited you in, so I'm glad, again, that you were able to come in and chat with us today. I want to talk about most things or all things legislative here in Connecticut and what's happening too, on the Hill. And I want to set the stage, so I'm just going to share a few things with our audience. In January, Democrats, Republicans, you came together to approve a bill, basically to prevent a tax hike on the middle class. And it would have just thrown our economy back into a recession if you had not done so. And also, we're just wrapping up the celebratory time in Washington, D.C. regarding all of the 2013 inauguration activities. And President Obama's message was, or theme, if you will, was called Faith in America's Future.
Correct.
And I'm just going to ask you, we know you're a Democrat, we know you're in the U.S. House of Representatives, but why did you believe our president deserved another 4 years?
Well, he, first and foremost, is an exceptional president. He's incredibly bright, articulate, he communicates very well, and you can tell that he has the interests of the country and carries it in his heart. And I think he will go down in history as one of our great presidents, and that is in spite of the opposition that he continues to face in the United States Congress. You may recall, Billy, that the Congress, as we struggled when the Republicans took control in 2010, Mitch McConnell said his primary goal was to defeat Barack Obama. And in the House, they obstructed everything that the president put forward. And then they created a couple of artificial issues. Number one, the debt ceiling issue, that became a crisis. Obama tried to work with John Boehner, the speaker. They reached a deal. Boehner brought it back to his recalcitrant caucus, and they pulled the rug out from him. They said, no deal. That ended in a compromise that led to a select committee to deal with the deficit. And that select committee became gridlocked, and so sequestration, as it's commonly referred to, which means there would be an automatic across-the-board cuts, would go into effect. Well, all of that piled up as they just kicked the can down the road until, as you said, we were in Congress through the new year. And again, Boehner went to Obama. Obama compromised. Boehner took that compromise back to his caucus. They rejected that. And then Boehner said, well, I'll come up with my own compromise proposal. And they rejected his. So the Senate then took action and passed it in the House, and Boehner allowed for a vote to come forward, but still a majority of Republicans did not vote. And this idea that they would rather see the president fail than the nation succeed is very disheartening. Now, that's not all Republicans, but the Tea Party element within the Republican Party that continues to be the tail that wags the elephant is quite unfortunate. And when you have people like Newt Gingrich saying, look, this debt ceiling issue is a non-starter. No president, the country has never defaulted on its payments. And see, what the debt ceiling means is that Congress, as the president said in the State of the Union, and as he has consistently says, that means we have to pay our debts. The United States has never defaulted on its debt. it has nothing to do with the deficit, other than the fact that it is when, you know, it's like running up something on your credit card and then telling the bank you're not going to make the payment. That's not good for United States credit or United States bond rating, etc. So the tax cuts for the middle class went into effect. That pushed the issue of both the debt ceiling, that was extended for 90 days, and sequestration, which is these automatic cuts that take effect unless Congress does something about it, and also what we call the continuing resolution. All of these are politically contrived, meaning they are creatures of the legislature. They have nothing to do with the Constitution, our budget, or anything else, other than the legislature created them as an impediment to preventing the president from getting his agenda through, and now they've come home to roost.
Well, you know, it's good that you're really giving us a good a civics 101. We're having that type of a discussion today, and I know that you could probably relate to that very well because you used to be a former history high school teacher, correct? And you know, you're sharing that there's been showdowns, there's been some budget impasses, but again, we finally made it happen. And let me just say this. I want people to have a real understanding, and again, I do try to do shows sometimes like a Civics 101 because everyone doesn't really have a real true understanding of how the political machine works. And even the most astute person sometimes doesn't understand how it all works. But you know, you're with our first district, you're serving our first district, and our first district centers on Hartford, correct? Okay, and it's made up of what, 27 cities and towns? Yep. And that includes what, Litchfield and the Middlesex County, correct?
Portions of Litchfield,
okay,
and just a little portion of Middletown and Portland.
Okay, okay. Now, we know Hartford is our capital, and you know, we've got the insurance industry right here, but when we talk about the economy, does Hartford still continue to play a leading role in the economy versus like other cities and towns in our state at this point in time?
Well, in our state and in the first district, Hartford still is the financial hub of the state, in large part because of the insurance industry, in large part because of the hospitals that are here, and the new fields of biomedicine, and the expansion of both Hartford and St. Francis hospitals as integral and critical parts of the economy, jobs, employment, community-based health care, which we've done and got funding for at both Charter Oak and also Asylum Street. So it's we've seen an awful lot of economic growth and money come into the city of Hartford. I jokingly say that Eddie Perez first, and now the mayor always refers to me as, he calls me Santa Claus.
Yes, okay.
So he, and you know, and I've had a great working relationship with both of them, but Hartford still is the cog. But what's nagging at Hartford in a lot of communities is the unemployment rate amongst young people, even amongst those graduating college, and then the persistent nagging unemployment in our minority communities, whether it be South or North End. So we got a lot of work still to do. Unfortunately, the Republicans have blocked the president's plan as it relates to jobs that would invest in the infrastructure, meaning roads, bridges, schools, broadband, airports, you know, the work that needs to be done on the dikes on both the East Hartford and Hartford side. So all of these should be, these are things that should be enacted and passed, but they have been blocking the president in this effort. And the country, the people of the country and in this district just said, hey, look, why can't you guys just work together and get the job done? But even on aid as related to Sandy, the Republican conference voted against their own Republican members from New Jersey, New York, who were out there fighting to get the aid. We still haven't gotten it, by the way. It will come, but it's been sliced up in increments, and it's just rather a shame that things can become so polarized that things don't happen and move, or that you view the president as a threat and so you block his legislation. Well, look, he's elected for 4 more years. So let's work together and get the job done.
Well, we know your focus is on seniors. I recall the senior official, senior newsletter, which is great. We just talked about students, and we'll talk about them more, but also the poor, working families, and everybody's been greatly impacted, by the economy these days. And when we talked about a few things, the president signing the income tax rates for the middle class to remain low, which is great. But when we talk about that bipartisanship, first time in 20 years, a bipartisan agreement will increase tax rates on the wealthy. What are you hearing here in Connecticut regarding, because we're a wealthy state. We are a wealthy state. So there are a lot of wealthy individuals here, and are they, they could be Democrats, they could be Republicans. How are they feeling about this?
Well, they are, but if you go back and look at what happened, now we say a tax increase, but what happened was this. The Bush tax cuts, which went into effect, did so and were unpaid for, meaning when those tax cuts were out, there wasn't the revenue to replace them. But it was agreed during the recession that you couldn't make further cuts on the middle class, and I think everybody agrees with that. But what they did is say, listen, instead of, we're going to go back to the tax rate that people were paying under Bill Clinton, where we had 16 consecutive quarters of unprecedented economic growth, and we were on course to pay off the entire national debt by 2009. And then when President Bush came in.
But are we talking about $737 billion? I mean, is that still the number?
No, we're talking about when President Bush came in and took over.
Right.
They had the tax cuts, 2 wars, both unpaid for. Never in our history have we had wars that are unpaid for. And then, in essence, a windfall in Medicare Part D for pharmaceutical and insurance companies that was paying 116% more than the cost of Medicare. So those 3 things led to a $10 trillion deficit that Obama inherited, as well as the 2008 collapse of the financial markets and the ensuing bailout of those industries and the automobile industry. So that's what this president faced.
It was a domino.
It was. And so even though we have made steady growth, the growth has been slow and small. And unfortunately, the Republicans have not been willing to work with the president. The most fundamental thing that we could do is have a jobs bill. I was proud to be the author of the president's jobs bill and be the lead Democrat to put that forward in Congress. That was the good news. The bad news is the Republicans wouldn't even take his proposal up. So let us hope, now that he's been reelected, then, and they certainly understand the importance of jobs and infrastructure, and that we know that we can reduce more than 1/3 of the national debt just by lowering the unemployment rate nationally from 8.1% to under 6%. That should be the goal and objective of everybody in Congress, to put everybody back to work. Billy, you know that the dignity that comes from work, the ability to sit across the table with your spouse and your kids and let them know that you're going to be able to provide for them, that they're going to be able to go to school, they're going to be able to put food on the table and pay the mortgage. I mean, that's, and Americans don't ask much more than that. Absolutely. And what they want from their government is to pull together, work together to help put people back to work and help bolster the economy, incentivize the private sector and the small businessman, and get money pumped back into the economy.
Congressman, we're going to take a quick break,
sure,
and we'll be back with Congressman John Larson on Communities on Point. Stay with us.
Let me tell you who to blame. Blame the boy lying at your feet, his body oozing life through the hole in his stomach where the bullet tore him apart. Blame him for challenging you, for not looking away and for not backing down when you pulled out the gun. Blame your mother for bringing you into this world when she was but a kid herself and for dragging you up, not bringing you up. Blame society for not giving you hope. Blame your father for not being there, the man who looked after himself instead of looking after you. Blame the gun in your hand for making you a target, for making you more likely to be picked on. Blame the dead boy, blame your mother, blame society, blame your father, blame the gun, blame anyone but yourself for not being strong enough to put down the gun, to break the cycle.
Welcome back to Communities on Point. I'm Billy Spruce, and again, we have Congressman John Larson with us today. And we've been talking about a number of things. We've been talking about the middle class. We've been talking about a number of different folks within our population, if you will, seniors, the middle class, the poor, the working class. And we want to get it right today. That's why we want to hear from Congressman Larson about what's going on in the Hill and how he is serving Connecticut and listening to our needs as well, which is very important. Just before we went to a break, we were talking a little bit about the unemployment rate, and I just want you to just give us a couple more highlights about that.
Well, the unemployment rate, frankly, is just unacceptable, especially in our urban areas like the city of Hartford, but you can go to almost any city or my hometown of East Hartford and see that the unemployment rate is hardest, and it's hardest hit amongst the minority community. And so we have to redouble the efforts. The President of the State of the Union again called upon Congress to pass the legislation, to pass the jobs legislation that we mentioned in the first half of the program.
The minimum wage, $8.25 to $9.
Minimum wage, which is makes all the sense in the world and will help the economy out, because people, when they have the money, will purchase that money. And so all the small shops that rely on the circular flow of goods and services and people being able to spend money in their community, pay their taxes, feed their families, pay their mortgages, and send their kids to school. I mean, that's what it's all about. And so that's why we have to, hopefully, we'll find amongst the Republicans, and there is some interest in doing infrastructure bills that will create this investment, and then incentivizing the tax code to have a lot of the money that businesses have open up and flow to the communities and start the hiring of people. A lot of that comes when people feel certain. And unfortunately, this Republican-dominated House has created vast uncertainty by always trying to create these false crises. And whether it's the debt ceiling, as we talked about in the first part, or sequestration, it seems like we go, as the President said, from one crisis to the other, with them playing hostage politics with the American people. And we'll not give any tax breaks unless you cut Medicare and Social Security.
Well,
why would we do that?
Exactly. And before we even talk about that, because we were really talking about families and working families.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, Offset, we had a little conversation about the fact that we are alums. I attended Southern Connecticut State University, and you stated that you are an alum of that university as well.
Central Connecticut.
Oh, you're Central. Okay,
yes,
so you're a blue devil. You are a blue devil. Okay.
You're an owl.
Yes, I'm an owl. But with that said, when we think about working families even trying to send their children to school, and especially college, and we just heard that there was going to be another increase in tuition at colleges, even here in Connecticut. And there are a number of programs out there that's allowing you to probably keep more money in your pocket. And I want to talk about a few of those programs. We always knew about the there's the child tax credit. I want to just talk about some of those programs first. Can you just give us a really quick definition of what the child tax credit is?
Well, what the child tax credit is anyone that has children, and as you're filing, and you look at the number of children that you have, you receive a tax credit for those children. Now, I thought you were going to talk about the earned income tax credit as well, which means sometimes when people don't earn enough money to qualify for it, their incomes are so low they don't qualify for deductions, then you still get the earned income tax credit based on need and based on.
And that was the next one on my list, to give a definition of that as well.
So anytime anyone has, now we have some great agencies that work and assist and help, and certainly our office can, but a number of the state agencies do excellent work at that. It is important, however, and I'll say this to your listeners, that people sign up, and that's why the census, and that's why making sure that you're reporting your kids and your financial situation helps both the city and the individual in terms of qualifying for federal funding and in fact state funding as well.
And I could actually attest to this, Congressman, that right here in this building, we actually have a number of people who come in here for VITA, I guess volunteer income tax assistance. So we hope that they're sharing a number of these types of credits that they can also receive as working families.
Correct.
There's another one that I want to mention too, the American Opportunity Tax Credit.
Mm-hmm.
Can you shed light on that one as well?
Well, the American Opportunity Tax Credit, I believe, is a tax credit for people that are going on to higher education. And so, but just to be sure, what I would say for any tax credit like this, people should call our office. And it's very simple, 860-278-8888. And whether it's a case on immigration, Social Security, Medicare, higher education, veterans funds, or anything related to the tax code that you think might help you, call our office and we'll hook you up with the right people.
And we'll make sure, even at the end of this segment, that we'll give folks that phone number again as well. Okay? We were talking about jobs, and we were talking about infrastructure earlier as well, and basically investments that create job opportunities. And so there's been a lot of discussion about clean energy and innovation types of projects, and I know there's a production tax credit and research program, and there's the experimentation of a tax credit. Can you just shed some light on some of those types of things in order for us to put people back to work? Because we talked about roads, we talked about bridges. There's a number of things that we could be doing to push or move that along. What are you doing on the Hill to make that happen?
Well, what we're trying to do is a couple of things. Number one, and one of the things that we've done in the state, because we've seen the obstructionism that takes place down in Washington in terms of stopping any of those proposals from being fully funded and going through. So instead, what we've done is created a manufacturing match here in the state of Connecticut with the Department of Labor, with the CRT, with the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology, and bringing all of these groups together so that we can create what is commonly referred to as something like speed dating, where you match up a person's skill with a company that's looking for people, and it allows both the individual to see multiple companies and the companies to screen multiple individuals for employment. Now, the other areas happen to, the continued area of economic growth that we need to focus on is small business. And we've had forums with the SBA, had a couple up in the North End, which has been the hardest to serve, to make sure that we're freeing up the money. We've got money for Hidetco, who has been able to help small businesses grow, work, etc. And we've got to do more. We've been working with Steve Harris primarily in the North End to try, and with a whole coalition of people.
Petro, Sam Hamilton, some of those folks.
Yes, and to try to assist in getting them the funding so they in turn can give it out to the small entrepreneur, the small businessman, so they can be assisted in growing the economy and growing their business. And of course, people have to be able to develop a business plan, etc., and then hopefully we can point them in the right directions. It's the same thing. We work with SAMA in the South End and all the various groups and organizations in the city to assist them, and whether it's our piece of the pie or whomever, you know, these become very important agencies of the people.
Housed right here in our building.
Exactly, that we're able to assist and help them financially so they can in turn help the people in the community.
Now, I'm going to go back to just the economy and just working, extending emergency unemployment insurance for 2 million people for work. That's been signed, sealed, and delivered. Correct?
Yes, but it has to be renewed because it's going to run out, and that will be one of the things that's going to be impacted by the sequester. And also, you know, we've met consistent resistance from the Republicans who say it's time for people to go back to work. So here's the rub. They won't give the president his jobs bill, which will help people go back to work, and they're trying to deny him the unemployment rate when people are out of work. And they're saying, well, they ought to be able to find a job, but you won't give them the money to do the infrastructure, do the roads, do the bridges, get the money out there to the small business associations. Come on. You can't have it both ways. And it's been this obstinance that, you know, I think has been the real struggle in the United States Congress. And
we talked very quickly about you've opposed cuts to, you know, again, Social Security benefits, Medicare, Medicaid. Just a short answer. Why?
Okay. First of all, every listener in your audience should be aware of this. When you hear somebody say, it's an entitlement and we want to reform it, take a look at your paycheck. Every week or every 2 weeks, Social Security and Medicare are taken out of your paycheck. You pay for it. It is not an entitlement. It is an insurance program that is the safety net of the country, but it's commonly lumped into welfare payments are entitlements. Not a bad thing, but they are entitlements. Unemployment, an entitlement program. Food stamps, an entitlement program. Social Security and Medicare are what you pay. They're the safety net for the country. An average woman retiring with nothing but Social Security gets between $12,000 and $14,000 a year. How do you live on that? You want to cut that while the very wealthy amongst us pay little in taxes? I don't think so. You want to cut Medicare, where people need this for their health? Thank God for the passage of the Affordable Health Care Act, where you can no longer go bankrupt if you have an illness, where pre-existing conditions are addressed, where kids can stay on your policy to age 26, where free screenings take place for the elderly so that preventatively we can deal with a number of disease and disorders that they deal with. This is what this president has done and why I believe he'll go down in history. Now, they're going to continue to try to repeal that because they believe it's too costly. Well, what did we have before? 48 million people without insurance, 80 million in any given cycle, and all the costs were passed on through the emergency room back out to the public. So we're paying it anyway, but in the most inefficient way. Why not insure people, drive the costs down, make it affordable for everyone, and emphasize wellness and health and nutrition? That's what this president is trying to do.
And prevention.
Yes, exactly.
Preventative health care, exactly. We've got to talk about gun control.
We have to.
We have to. You know, we experienced here in Connecticut the horrific shooting in Newtown, and it was, what, on December 14th, and it was
Correct.
2 months ago.
Right.
And when President Obama held a press conference that day, I'd like to quote just some of the remarks
Sure.
that he made. One of the things that he said was, as a country, we have been through this too many times. Whether it's an elementary school in Newtown, or a shopping mall in Oregon, or a temple in Wisconsin, or a movie theater in Aurora, or a street corner in Chicago, these neighborhoods are our neighborhoods. And these children are our children. And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this. regardless of the politics. Now, I want to share something with you, and
Sure.
historical fact, and it's even on your website.
Yep.
Samuel Colt, okay, famous and innovative, firearms manufacturing operation, and it was founded, actually a historical date, 1836 in Hartford. And many Connecticut residents made a good living, made a very good living.
Sure.
I have relatives myself who worked for the Colt
Right.
factory. But I had uncovered a story, I read a story actually in Time magazine, and it was August of last year, and the cover was "How Guns Won, Why Americans Have Turned Against Gun Control." And they had stated that the Aurora, Colorado shooter had used a .223 caliber semi-automatic assault rifle, and it was loaded with a 100-round drum.
Right.
In that same magazine, Congressman, it also talked about the ammo economy, and that's why I'm just sort of making reference to the Samuel Colt, or
Yep.
the Colt factory.
Yep.
But they were saying making bullets is a growth business, and they were saying that the Colorado shooter had purchased more than 6,000 rounds for his assault rifle, pistols, and shotguns,
Right.
and this was the statistic that they used. The ammunition, is the fastest growing business in the U.S., and that in May of last year, there were 1,996 licensed ammunition manufacturers, up from 27%. And, this was a statistic that was from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Right.
But, if you have the means, you can purchase this kind of ammo. But how do we address a situation such as this? We're also addressing mental health issues as well. So how do we know when we're dealing with a mass murderer or the mind of a mass murderer?
Well, these are all complicated questions.
They are.
But again, let me say that I think the president is spot on. I had the great honor, however solemn it was, to fly up on Air Force One with him as we went to Newtown for those ceremonies. But one of the things that we discussed, I had never seen the president so shook as he was. But he's always quick to point out as well that Newtown may serve as a tipping point, but you and I both know what goes on in Hartford, in New Haven, in Bridgeport,
In Chicago,
in
as
Waterbury,
he stated.
and Chicago, more so than almost any other place. What's happened to our children, either caught in crossfires or children attacking children, has got to stop. Politics be damned. And it includes everything. It includes the gun lobby. It includes, making sure that, now this is the assault weapons, that was allowed to lapse. That was in law already and was allowed to lapse. And these huge capacity clips, which allow people the ability to shoot off those rounds, they need to be regulated. The article is right, with respect to the ammo. That's what needs to be regulated. This is not about anyone coming to take anyone's gun away. You have that under the Second Amendment, but the Second Amendment also says that it will be a well-regulated militia. And the word regulated means that you are regulating to protect the interests of people. There's nothing wrong with Colt manufacturing, producing the arms and armaments that we need for our military, for our police forces, and for other nations that may choose to utilize them for their military.
There's a real focus.
There's a focus.
Mm-hmm.
What there is this whole underground of people being able to get a hold of weapons that circumvent background checks that will allow you to determine whether or not a person had mental illness or there were problems there. And as you know, Connecticut is working on laws, the president's proposed laws, beefing up the schools, not just with security, like we have in a lot of our schools already, but with the very poignant issue that you made with respect to mental health and community service, and how about the most important thing? How about jobs for young kids? And you may recall that we've had both John Lewis up to the district. John and I are the author of a bill that deals with youth violence, and then Bobby Scott from Virginia, also two incredible members of the Congressional Black Caucus who've been to Hartford. Jesse Jackson Jr. has been up here with me, and we have done an awful lot of work. We still haven't been able to get that piece of legislation through, but the president, again, in his State of the Union, called for us to look specifically not just at the destruction that guns bring, but also the problems associated with mental health, and dare I say it, also the culture of violence. You know, all of the movies, the TV, the television, and the
video games
that kids are inundated with, where killing becomes a game. And in a game or on TV, you know, it's fake. But in real life, it is the most devastating and agonizing thing. And the people of this city have experienced this, and it must hurt in a way to think that, well, as tragic as it is, that and certainly was a tipping point with the loss of those children, do you think as much attention was given when a child was lost in Hartford or out in Chicago? And that's what was really eating at the president as well. So it's long overdue. It should never have come to this, but it has. And so we have to act. And what did the president say? I'm just asking you to do something. Whether you agree or disagree with me, vote.
Vote. They deserve a vote.
They deserve a vote.
Absolutely.
The kids in this city deserve a vote. The kids in Chicago deserve a vote. Kids all across the country, and as you said, whether it was Aurora County, whether it was Littleton, whether it's Newtown. And these people all deserve votes, but so do all the parents and victims that have been, in our district. You may recall Hartford Distributors, where 8 people
Yes.
were killed just 2 years ago. Those families still suffer and hurt and are searching for answers. And these were great heroes. I recall Craig Pepin, and who family friend, and it's awful. It's awful.
I want to just say a couple of things. You've been serving in the United States House of Representatives since what, 1999?
Yep.
Is that correct? And so you're currently serving your what, 7th?
I'm going into my 8th term.
Wow, unbelievable. I love to read your bio only because I feel like you have just done it all, and I'm just going to make mention of it. We talked earlier about the fact that you were a high school history teacher, but you've been an athletic coach.
Yeah.
You've been an insurance company owner, Larson and Lysick Insurance?
Agency.
Okay, okay. Clearly, again, you're a East Hartford native, but
Yeah.
you were on the East Hartford Board of Education,
Yeah.
East Hartford Town Council, you were elected to the Connecticut State Senate, and you also served as the Senate President Pro Tem. So all of this is just a great segue for you, Congressman, for you to be on the Hill right now, I'm going to assume. But I just wanted to ask you, going into your 8th term, are there any real future goals that you still, or even professional goals that you aspire to? Would you be willing to
Well, I have a lot.
share
I have
this
a lot of things that I think still have to be accomplished. And first and foremost is putting this region back to work, and then watching this region come together and coalesce. And I'm proud of a lot of the work that we've done. I want to make sure that we're continuing to preside over the revitalization and comeback of the city of Hartford, all the way back, especially in its districts and communities that are hardest to serve. But that's the same thing is true in East Hartford and Manchester, and in Bloomfield and Windsor, and you can go all throughout this first district. So, and I have some specific goals. You mentioned Coltsville. I want to see that made a national park. I want to make sure that our dikes are protected and our people are put back to work and our industry thrives and grows. That small business gets a rebirth. We've done a lot to preserve United Technologies and Pratt Whitney aircraft. That's in my hometown, but as people in this city will tell you, a number of them work over there. And we've expanded the jobs. They're going to continue to expand because we've invested in manufacturing. And we've won the F-35, which is a major engine battle, the tanker. The PW4000 is a new commercial venture that they're going through. So manufacturing is on the rise. Biosciences are on the rise. Our hospital and healthcare industries are growing and expanding. What we need is greater help and greater assistance, and then focusing on putting the youth together. I also, along with, Riverfront Recapture, et cetera, I think the ring of parks throughout the city of Hartford. I think of Keeney Park, which should be a national treasure. These things we need to invest in and bring back in a way that will both restore the neighborhoods all around and provide the people of the city with a place where they can go and be at ease. And if I can do those things and make education, as we talked about earlier, more affordable. When you and I went to school, more so me probably, or far younger than me, college was affordable.
Yes.
And you got national defense loans, you had the ability to pay for it, and you weren't strapped with these unbelievable burdens kids are today.
Absolutely.
Hey, my attitude is this: if we can bail out Wall Street, we can certainly bail out the youth of this country who've been strapped with unbelievable loans and their parents that are saddled with them, etc. We got to ease the pressure on these people for their payments, and even if we have to provide holidays for some of those payments, so that until they get jobs, until they're in a position, we can't afford to heap so much debt on them before they get a chance to get a job so they're never able to dig their way out.
And you know what? I'd like to just end on that note, because again, you're right, digging your way out. We want to, what you're doing is you're helping us, and we're grateful that you've been with the U.S. House of Representatives for going on 8 terms, and just continue to work for us in Connecticut. We appreciate that. And I'd like to just thank you for even informing us today about what's been going on. And I know you're always around and you're making it happen when you're here in Connecticut, but I hope you will come back again and
well, I look forward to it. I think it's one
more
of the
information with us.
I think it's the responsibility of every elected official to inform the public. Now, and this is a very important point, Billy, the public gets informed on a regular basis. They see TV, they get tweets, they get calls. We're inundated with information. But know this, because there's a lot of misinformation and false information. You see, and everybody who watches TV is seeing what people try to do to the president. Remember this: there's a difference between information and knowledge of the truth. And that's why public forums are important. That's why the great community service that this local access station provides is vitally important to the people, to get at the truth, to hold their elected officials accountable, but also to make sure that they're getting the facts and the information and able to access their government so that it helps them.
And there's not a lot of editing done here, or the 1 minute or 60-second or 30-second soundbite. So thank you again so much. Thank you for joining us today. And I'd like to thank our viewers as well for joining us today for another edition of Communities on Point.